Hi, this is Dave Whorton. Welcome to the Evergreen Experience 2020. We're excited to launch this new online event today with the goal of offering insights into Evergreen leaders' experiences and innovations in this period of crisis and rapid change. In this inaugural event, I'm joined by Tugboat Institute members Brian Canlis, president and co-owner of Canlis Restaurant, and Carrie Freeman Parsons, chair of Freeman. These two Evergreen family-owned companies both represent industries especially hard hit by this crisis. Restaurants in the case of Brian, and major event management in the case of Carrie. And both are adapting and reimagining their companies, displaying inspiring resiliency rooted in their purpose and enabled by their Evergreen values. We're grateful to Brian and Carrie for joining this first event to share their Evergreen experiences today. So with that, let's get started. Hello, Carrie.
Hi. Good morning.
Morning. Good morning, Brian.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Carrie.
Hey.
Super. Well, thanks for being here. So I have a few questions I'd like to kind of walk both of you through, and I'll kind of go back and forth between the two of you. And then after that, we'll move to some Q&A if that's all right.
Sure thing.
All right. Well, Carrie, let's start with you first. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, and also what was the state of your business going into the COVID shutdown?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm new to the Tugboat team, and I will tell you that the timing has been fortuitous. It's been great for me. So I represent the third generation of the Freeman family in our business. It was started in 1927 by my grandfather in Des Moines, Iowa, and we have evolved into kind of the largest brand experience company in the world. And what that means is that we provide services for corporations, show organizers, associations to bring their events to life. We primarily focus in the B2B space, but we also work on South by Southwest and other events that are consumer driven. And our legacy business has always been the logistics side of kind of getting the right thing to the right place at the right time and transforming an empty building into that which is unique for that specific event. But over the last several years, we've been bringing strategy and creative to our clients as well. So why are you having an event? Who do you want to bring to the event? What's going to happen when you get there? Really focusing on the attendee engagement. So we have the opportunity to work with lots and lots of associations, nonprofit, for-profit corporations. And prior to COVID, we were expecting this year to finish at about $2.2 billion in revenue. Our fiscal year ends June 30. And we employed about 5,400 full-time folks, but we send out 50,000 W-2s approximately at the end of the year because of our hiring, union labor and part-time labor, temporary agencies, PTAN employees, that type of thing. So we actually, our last quarter, which is the second half of the year, January to June, is always our busiest part of the year. But the last quarter is really where we hum and where we frankly make the vast majority of our profit for the rest of the year. So, the timing was pretty rough for us because it really happened at the time that we were, after having carried 9 months of overhead, we're really trying to, thought we were finished the year strong. And then anticipating next fiscal year actually being our best ever, seeing an almost increase of revenue about 20% as a result of just some show rotation. So pre-COVID, we were, it was a pretty happy time.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that. And I'll be back to you in just a moment, Carrie. Brian, if I could ask the same question of you too, tell us a little about yourself and your business and how are things going into, let's say, the beginning of March?
Like Carrie, my grandfather also started our business and we have evolved into still just having one restaurant. I'm kind of amazed. Carrie, I should have done more research. That's incredible what you do. I've been around 70 years, since 1950. And we are a fine dining restaurant. My grandfather built it. My parents ran it for 30 years. My brother and I took over about 10 years ago. And we've had a good deal of success. We are we are the most award-winning restaurant in the Northwest of the country. We are about $11 million in annual revenue. We won a bunch of James Beard Awards, and we just do one thing. We serve dinner. That's all we've ever done. We serve dinner 6 days a week. And I don't know, I feel like that's about it. My own personal story, I never thought I would go into the restaurant business. I joined the Air Force. I got deployed to the Afghanistan war. Did not ever see myself being a restaurant guy. And I was wooed back into this business by my brother, who came back to the family business first. And gosh, I fell in love with it, and I never saw that coming. But I'm happy to be here. And it's, COVID, I think restaurants we're getting a lot of press because we are I think the most decimated of industries.
Well, why don't we keep going there, Brian? So what happened? How quickly did it happen? And how bad did it get?
We were down. We had just finished 2019 was our biggest year ever, both profit and revenue. And that was exciting. As a 70-year-old restaurant, that felt great. January and February were strong. March, we started to really feel the pain. We were down about 25% in revenue versus same period last year. And in our business, that means you're immediately in the red and bleeding. Our goal as a company is to hit 8% net profit. So there's in some years we do that, some years we definitely don't. So our margins are really small. And so when things started turning and people started canceling, things got a little dire, especially because we sell our reservations in advance. So the majority of our cash was for future parties and future reservations. So closing meant we had to pay all of that back, which completely depleted our bank account. And it made the idea of surviving this even more, I think, stressful and tenuous.
Great. So Brian, I'm going to come back to you in a moment on this also, but you did close the restaurant. Can I lead with that little teaser that we'll come back to?
We did. I believe we were the first restaurant in America to close because we're in Seattle. So we were ahead of the country as far as the disease coming and affecting us. And then we closed announced that we were closing before any other restaurant, before the governor told us we had to.
Okay.
So we decided, and that's what made such big news, is before we were asked to close, we decided to close and become something else.
Okay, great. And we'll come back to that, which is terrific. All right, Carrie. So what happened, how quickly, and kind of how severe?
Well, we have an agency in Asia, in China. So we saw the impact in January where events were starting to cancel, had kind of our eye on the fact that it was going to have an impact. It's not a huge revenue driver for us. So we were starting to adjust to what that might mean to our overall fiscal performance, but also started thinking about what the impact could be here. And we also have a kind of an early sign for us is we have a significant office in Seattle that serves the Microsoft account. And we had someone there who had was concerned about being exposed. So we needed to immediately close that office. And what we first saw were the big corporations cancel. Facebook was one of the first ones. It's not one of our clients, but they canceled in San Francisco, and several other corporations, Microsoft and others. And a lot of that had to do at the beginning with the brand risk. They didn't want to be the event where COVID kind of took off. And so at first it was really just our corporate business that we saw cancel. And then our association business started to cancel as well. And in fact, we have a show, an event, HIMSS, that was in Orlando and actually had completely moved in and decided not to open. It was a medical show and they just didn't think that that had the risk. And once HIMSS canceled, the dominoes just fell. So really within, it was really literally like trying to catch a knife. I mean, it was just every day we were seeing more and more and more cancellations over sort of a 2 or 3, 4 week time period. So it took a little bit of time, I guess, into February, or, you know, and with South by Southwest was canceled as well. But kind of once those 1 or 2 dominoes hit, basically everything canceled through the end of our fiscal year. So basically 0 revenue for April, May, June, and then we started seeing cancellations into July and August as well.
Wow. So this is pretty significant for both of you. So I'm just do a quick check-in, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what happened since then. But, you know, how are you guys both doing today? You know, just, you know, emotionally, you know, this has been really tough, really unpredictable. And of course, we'll talk more about the details in a moment, but just as a check-in, you know, and a prelude to my next question.
Well, I'll go. You know, I think that and I can talk a little bit about, so again, in that time period, we went from, you know, 5,400 employees to, by the end of March, we'd furloughed a couple thousand, and then 2 weeks later, we furloughed another couple thousand. So we're basically at 12 to 13%. We've furloughed about 87% of our team members, and that happened really in about a 2 or 3 week time period. And you know, prior to that, it was very scary because it just was happening so quickly. Once we decided to just take control and say, all right, we're just going to decide how bad this is going to be, and we're going to make the adjustments. You know, that part, of course, was very emotional because we knew we were making decisions that were going to impact people we love. And that was really hard. And the team, you know, it was just really, really, really hard. But, you know, as we've gone another 4 to 6 weeks, the news isn't necessarily any better. We just are in control of what's happening and are really starting to build, and we can talk about that in a little bit, building going forward. So, you know, from my perspective, it's definitely been an emotional roller coaster, but it's been much fewer downs than ups in the last couple of weeks in particular. And I think just accepting that there's going to be a new normal and what our opportunity is, and seeing the resilience of our team, and kind of feeding into that experience and seeing how our culture has come to life even more broadly has been really, really encouraging. So I would say, you know, there were times that I was sad, but I was never forlorn, or, you know, there were times that, you know, we're laughing again and we're doing some things that, so it's sort of, we've settled in, I guess, and I've settled in and realized, you know, there's a lot to be grateful for, and, you know, we're going to be okay.
That's great. Thank you, Carrie. And we will come back to those things that you've been doing. I think that'll be very interesting. Brian.
You know, I've been reading a lot of Brene Brown recently because she's encouraging me to not go down the road of comparative suffering, which is a slippery slope. So I'm trying to lean into my joy and not feel ashamed of it. But I'm having one of the best seasons of my life. And that's hard only because my peers and friends are hurting so much. But gosh, I haven't had this much fun at work and had this kind of challenge for years. And we just gave birth to a baby boy who's healthy in the middle of all this.
Congratulations.
I'm having dinner with my family for the first time in my life. I don't work nights anymore. So I'm 2.5 months in a row of dinner around the table with my kids, which is not a thing restaurateurs get to do. And yeah, there's so much that's hard. but I find myself encouraged every day about all the good that's happening. So I'm in a good place today.
Yeah, it's like that Mr. Rogers quote, right? Keep your eye out for the helpers, right? Well, let's do this. Carrie, so tremendous drop off in revenues, the painful of having let go of people you love. I know you're optimistic that there'll be a day you can bring many folks back. But let's talk about how you guys adapted, how have you innovated? How are you kind of reimagining the future of your business?
Yeah, well, so we have been working on reimagining our business for the past few years. We started on this process, we called it Vision 2025, realizing that really our core legacy business that is still incredibly important. You still need to get the right thing to the right place at the right time, but that has become, really commoditized, and there's also a huge amount of cost associated with supporting that, which has been part of our, challenge right now. So we have been working on re-engineering the business, but we kept, bumping up into the fact that we are really busy. And
I like your bus analogy the other day.
Yeah. So we've been really, really busy, and it's hard to work in the business and on the business. And so what this is, one of our guys, and I shared this with you, Dave, that one of our guys said, this really has been the gift of pulling, we've been trying to change the tires on the bus as it's been careening down the freeway going, a billion miles an hour. And now the bus is pulled over, maybe not so happy about the fact that the bus is pulled over. But what this is actually giving us the opportunity to do is to decide, are we on the right road? Do we need a bus? Do we need two buses? Is it just the tires that need to be changed, or do we need to do a total overhaul? And the people who have been so busy running the business are now actually focusing on being in the business. And we're getting some of this work done in re-engineering in a way that when we come back, we're going to be a much, much healthier business. And, that having been said, it's been, those have their own implications, right? So we're kind of managing through, what does the future state look like? Who comes back from furlough first, second, who can help us do that? Kind of re-engineering, what's it going to be like for those people who come back? It's going to be like, a college kid that comes back and they've taken over their bedroom and made it an office. It just looks different and feels different. Where do they, do they fit? But it's also really giving us a great time to sort of reset some parameters with our customers. I think, frankly, I'm not going to say we've been taken for granted, but we haven't necessarily shared with them some of the model challenges that we have. And now we're able to really say, hey, if you want us to be here for you and be successful, we need you to work with us on these terms, and we need you to consider this. And it's giving us the courage of our convictions to actually navigate through some of these changes that are going to make I think the whole industry stronger. Our digital business and our strategy business that we've been investing in is really exploding because clients are trying to figure out, how do we re-engineer our association? How do we re-engineer our event? So, there's just a lot of cleanup that we're doing and a lot of re-engineering that we have I guess the gift of time to be able to address.
And Carrie, when we talked the other day too, talk a little bit about how Evergreen values have helped guide you through this. I think about purpose, the comments you made about that, and also about your financial resiliency, that you guys really came into this strong.
Yes. Well, so I talked for a long time about our culture and our values, and it's something that we've really been focusing on to try to take that has been implicit to making it very explicit. And our purpose is connecting people in meaningful ways. And that speaks to the business that we're in. We want, when people come together in an event, we want it to be a meaningful exchange. We believe that when people get together for events, new ideas are sparked, businesses are born, teachers learn how to teach better, doctors learn how to save lives. You know, it's really, we really believe in our purpose, and it also speaks to how we work with each other. And then our values, we have been very clear on defining those values. And so as we've been navigating through this, we've really, really leaned into our purpose and our values to make sure that we're, for instance, handling our furloughed folks in a way that is congruent with how they should be experiencing us when they're an active employee. So we picked up, we continued their insurance, but also picked up the employee cost of the insurance while they were on furlough, paid out their paid time off. We're doing weekly connections with them, providing them with opportunities to LinkedIn Learning and some other things that are free to them so that they're able to continue to hone their skills, an employee Facebook page that we're keeping active. So, and then with the folks who are staying or who are active right now, you know, we're really working with them as well to say, how do we consider our purpose going forward, and what's the new expression of that? So I think that this tough time that we've been through has in fact increased empathy and support for each other, and has made the meaningful connections that the leadership team in particular has made just really, really rock solid. It's really been a beautiful thing to behold.
That's great. Thank you, Carrie. So Brian, where I left you off, you closed the restaurant and you're spending more time with your kids and not having them to work at night. But something else has been going on, Brian.
Yeah.
And
It's been a wild ride. You know, 70-year-old family restaurants don't exist for a reason. They're a rare commodity, especially today, because people are obsessed with things that are new. They want to tell their friends that they went to the new place, not to the old place that everyone's been to. And in the last 10 years, we've been focusing a lot on being very comfortable with reinvention, with doing things that are juxtaposed to who people think we are. We give ourselves the freedom to play and surprise people because we knew that was one of the only ways to survive, is that if people thought of us not as a 7-year-old restaurant, but as a restaurant that was forward-thinking, relevant, pushing boundaries, exciting, but also steeped in this gorgeous, rich history. That really set us up. I'm so thankful for all the ridiculous things that we've done over the last 10 years, and there are many. I mean, we threw a party in our dining room where we had snow falling, St. Bernards running around, and hot tubs, and people in bathing suits drinking beer because we thought that was the right thing to do, and people thought we were nuts because we're a very fancy fine dining restaurant. We're the only place in the city with a dress code, and suddenly we have people doing shots on ski. We're doing shot skis in the bar, and there's people hanging off of chairlifts. Like that was just one of our parties. We have forced ourselves to get really comfortable with play and with reinvention. So when all this happened, it was my team didn't bat an eye when we decided to open a drive-through restaurant. So we went from a $200 per person average check to a $10 per person average check. And we made drive-through uniforms, and we did this entire world around we're a 1950s restaurant. How do we become a 1950s drive-through? And we also opened a bagel breakfast sandwich shop in our parking lot. We also opened a dinner delivery service. So in the span of 3 days, we opened 3 restaurants: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it was a wild ride. And it was super fun. And actually the problem, besides being terribly unprofitable, was the turnout was so dramatic. People enjoyed it so much that it eventually had to shut us down because we couldn't control the crowds. We couldn't control the traffic. We were shutting down roads.
Yeah, I saw something on Instagram where you're like, please drive this way. Like this looping thing below the restaurant.
We were spending $1,000 a day on a traffic company to change the routes. Like, the line to get in, we had 8 lanes serving, but we were able to create 8 drive-through lanes at our restaurant. And we had the line was still about a mile long. So it was wonderful and terrible. And about a week of that, we decided this is not sustainable. And so again, it was, okay, how do we reinvent again? How do we, that was a great idea last week. Now the virus is even, there's more fear. There is more guidance from the CDC. There is more, the rest of the country is starting to shut down. And so we kind of changed all of it. We did it for, I think, 8 days. And then we launched a whole different way of bringing dinner into people's homes. So we turned all of our dining room into delivery drivers. We started doing entertainment at night on a live stream for people. We started doing wine delivery and cocktail delivery. And we started, the only rule to get an idea passed was, does it create jobs? Our goal, we have 115 employees, and our goal is to not lay off a single employee. We haven't. I mean, that's the end of the story. We're still going strong. We're still trying to come up with ways to keep people employed. We just launched a few days ago the Canlis General Store, which is filled with all this merchandise that, again, is very juxtaposed to our brand. So we're famous for dress code, but we launched a pair of sweatpants that say no dress code, and we've sold almost 1,000 pair of dress pants. Well, we could have done a shipping company. We could have done you can hire services to run merch for you. But no, we moved 4 more tables out of the dining room and built a store. And I have 3 employees, and it's their full-time job to do shipping, receiving, ordering. And again, we were like, great, 3 more jobs. So we keep fighting to keep our entire team here. And I think that has been the spirit that has surprised our own staff and surprised us with that singular mission of being able to do it and to do it safely. That's a whole nother journey, is how do you keep 150 employees here and not put them in any danger? That's another question.
And Brian, just to build on that, there was something you told me the other day about the delivery routing when you're having your servers out delivering, and it was a little non-intuitive. Could you remind me what that was?
I actually don't remember what I said to you.
Sorry to put you on the spot. It was something about being inefficient in the delivery versus trying to have these perfectly efficient routes.
Yeah, exactly. So we got this fancy program called Routerific or something, and it's one of these incredible AI things that takes all the addresses. So we have about 400 deliveries a night, and it takes all of those addresses and all of the times. Because what we did is we created delivery like reservations, which is something that I think maybe we've invented now, which is happening all over the country, where instead of calling and ordering delivery and it comes to you, you reserve, hey, I want dinner at 6 or I want dinner at 7. And it arrives at a certain time, which means people get dressed up. And it's really neat how people are creating experiences in their own homes. But Routerific was too efficient. Before we used Routerific, it took all my staff the whole night to figure out how to deliver. This thing cut our hours in half, which didn't work, because suddenly it meant my people were now part-time and not full-time. And so we had to turn it off because it was too smart. Because again, our goal isn't to be profitable. Our goal is to keep people employed. Now, we can talk about, you have to maintain profit or you'll close. It's a different conversation, but we are not trying to be efficient. Our goal is to break even.
Right.
And if we can break even and keep everyone employed, that's a home run right now.
That's great. That's super. So I just have one last question for each of you, and then we'll kind of transition to the next part of the discussion. Carrie, kind of what's your view? I mean, you sit in a very unique seat, with all of these major corporate clients, putting on these major events, and nobody's got a crystal ball here, right? So, but just in your view, what do you think this recovery might look like from your perspective?
So we are presuming that there will be no work. And when I say no work, I mean no events. We're doing digital events and strategy projects and things like that. But as it relates to really the core business of face-to-face events, we're presuming that we'll be fortunate if we see events happening in October, November, even December. That having been said, so let me answer that question and I can go back. So we are presuming it'll be Q1 of the calendar year before there really is some level of meaningful gatherings, and then really the second quarter, which again is usually our biggest quarter. So we're kind of anticipating it's going to be, unfortunately, kind of a long slog, and then it'll take some time really for it to come back. It took 10 years for the industry to sort of get back to where it was pre-Great Recession, and it took 4 years after 9/11. So we have a big, we're leading a industry coalition about Go Live Together that we've brought back and are hoping to have some impact in Washington to say, can we have some level of incentives that cause people to participate? So it's not such a long recovery, primarily not, just for us, but it's just it's so important to all the stakeholders, the restaurants and the taxi drivers and tax revenue and incubating businesses and that kind of thing. So we're anticipating it's going to be slow. There are some, the Republican convention is in August, and the president has said we're having a convention, and then there's a big event in Chicago, IMTS, that is saying that they're going to continue. Unfortunately, some of it is, I think it's going to be based on two things. One, there's some political maneuvering there where I think the states that are the most open to having gatherings are going to obviously be open sooner. Obviously when events come back, even when they do come back, there's going to be differences, right? How do people queue up? How do we manage crowds? I think there'll be a lot more ticketing and things like that. So unfortunately, we think it's going to be a relatively slow comeback. And we also believe, as we continue to work with our clients, they're understanding the value of these events to their stakeholders. And so they are just waiting for the red or the green light to be able to go forward, because they are counting on these events to help their associations and to help connect with their customers, et cetera, et cetera. So although it'll be a long slog, we think it'll, come back relatively quickly. It'll take some time to get back to where we were. I mean, we're just honest about that. It's going to take hopefully less than 10 years, but it takes some time for us to get back to our pre-COVID revenue. But it's going to be a bit of a slog.
And just to clarify, you're talking about really large events. These are 40, 50, 60,000 people, more?
Well,
could be in Q1 of next year.
All of the above. I mean, all of the above. We work with some, there's an association for everything, right? So there's the National Association of, and there's the Texas Association of, and some events are a couple hundred people or a couple thousand people. I think our corporate clients, we're seeing, they are assuming that they're going to do more regional events and have smaller crowds. And if you think about Microsoft or Salesforce or some of those large corporations that have their, they have 50, 60, 70,000 folks, it's harder for a trade association to do that. Consumer electronics is another big one, CES, that's in January. Be interesting to see, what their decision is. Right now they're planning on going forward. We're hoping that they go forward. However, instead of having 70,000 attendees, it may need to be 30,000 attendees, or, and then spread out over a longer period of time with ticketing that you can only come in from certain area, managing the crowds. more effectively is what we're starting to work on with planning with our clients to enable them to still have their events, but with a different, more of a social distancing lens.
That's great. Thanks, Carrie. And again, these are all crystal balls, right? How about you, Brian? Can I have you look into your crystal ball and see what you think about the recovery?
I can't speak to anything outside of the restaurant industry, but our industry, I think, will forever be crippled. I mean, a little bit. That's the conversation that's happening is, I don't think it'll ever come back in the same way. The amount of independent restaurants that have and will go out of business because of this is kind of undeniable. And what will replace them, I think, are larger corporate-driven restaurants that are able to weather this storm. And I think there will be a great sadness, and there's already a grieving in our community about the looming tragedy that will be independent restaurants in America. One of my favorite restaurants in LA is called Petit Trois, and it's the size of a shoebox, and they put 60 people in there, and you can barely move. Like, does that restaurant ever come back in a post-COVID world? I don't know. I don't know if it'll be legal for it to come back. They're already talking about laws around spacing of chairs and all of it. I don't know. So we are not trying to play the game of let's get back to normal as soon as possible. I don't think normal will come back. We're trying to play the game of what does it look like to be who we are and to do our mission statement in a completely forever changed world, especially when we rely on the world of eating and serving, and we have so many germs, right? We are and now it's just people are going to be, I think, more fearful, and so it's hard. We don't have a rosy outlook if we look at it through a lens of going back to the way it was. But if we destroy the box, and we don't want to think out of the box, we want to kill the box and start thinking in a world with no box, and building from the ground up. What does our mission statement look like in this new world? I don't know.
People are going to still want to eat great food, right? People are going to want to find ways to gather with friends and family and business colleagues. So that's a great way of thinking about it, Brian.
Brian, it prompts me to think about, so one of our new clients is the National Restaurant Association. We actually haven't produced their event yet. That's supposed to be our first time is next. And, what I'm really hoping is, what we think is going to happen is, a lot of associations have been struggling anyway, right? They trying to get membership and raising money for advocacy, and they've been overly dependent on the revenue from their events, which now they're realizing, could be at risk. And so, it'd be really interesting at some point, for instance, if the National Restaurant Association or somebody else, and by the way, I'm just talking out of my head, that might not be even open, I don't know if they'd be open to it or not, but like involving an organization to help reinvent the box, right? And how does that box actually support their membership in a way that enables them to be able to recover from more challenges? And that's one of the things that we've seen that's been a little frustrating, especially like just speaking in our industry in general. The United States Travel Association has a really great, they are very unified, and because they've had to respond to 9/11 and some other things. And so how the airlines and the hotels and all those guys are really working together towards saying, what should the new safety standards be? How do we make the industry more resilient? How do we cut some of these systemic costs? And how could some of these old models that were intended to support their members actually be reinvented to support their members in the new world? We're hopeful that there could be some new conversations around that, and how they serve their membership and what events look like, and the support that they get could look very different.
Thank you both. I think this is one of the areas that Evergreen companies are going to lead, because of purpose, people first, pragmatic innovation, not trying to just grow for growth's sake. So this has been a really wonderful discussion with both of you.